Oh, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Here today with a familiar face on the channel. You know, my guy, he's been in every single season of Bullony Basketball. Had to get him here today. My guy, Edwin from A1Hoopz. How you doing, my man?
Going on, my man? Good to be here. For those of y'all that follow me, you guys already know I've been kind of like a little hiatus, but slowly making a comeback. I feel like Jordan in '95 right now.
Uh, uh,
But yeah, what's going on?
on that comeback, for sure, for sure. But yeah, so basically for today's show, won't be too long, but we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff, mainly predicting the play-in. So we're recording this literally right after the games on Sunday ended. So now we know the teams that are going to be in the play-in, that being the Heat, the Hawks, the Raptors, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, and the Thunder. And being that you are a Miami Heat fan, I am a Chicago Bulls fan. I mean, we're both in the play-in, so I figured it might make sense to have us both here to talk about this today. So, but I mean, like, we could just give our predictions, what we think about every game. I guess we'll start with the 7 and 8 seeds in each conference, but I think let's start off with the East. So your 7 seed Miami Heat and the 8 seeded Atlanta Hawks. What do you think is going to come out of this matchup, and who do you think will win?
Imagine if I said the Hawks.
I mean, you can if that's what you think,
Nah,
but
honestly, nah. I mean, when it comes to situations like this, I mean, especially for a team like Miami, I mean, we can go ahead and just erase 2021 from our memory banks because that didn't really happen. But aside from that, Jimmy's a guy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was trash in the 2021 playoffs, or whatever. That's pretty much his, I guess, version of like the 2011 finals for LeBron. Like, he completely choked in that series against the Bucks. But the very next year, ironically, they faced the Hawks in what was it, the first round?
mm,
And was it yeah, it was the first round. And just that type of defense really threw off Trae Young specifically. They threw multiple bodies at him, multiple different defenders. So he never really felt comfortable in that series. And that team is worse now than it was last year. So the Hawks I'm speaking of. So as far as what do I predict? I mean, look, yeah, they're a 7 seed, but Miami had a lot of injuries throughout the year. But for the most part, they've been playing really well as of late, as far as like the last month, 2 months. And Jimmy Butler himself's been playing extremely well as well. So with that being said, I mean, they're going into a situation where you're playing against playoff Jimmy Butler. I mean, I really don't think anybody really wants to see that. So with that being said, in Jimmy we trust. Miami gonna win that.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think the Miami Heat will win this. I looked at a stat. I think it was like in the last 13 games, playoffs and regular season combined. I think Trae Young shooting like 30% against the Heat and like 16% from three, which is like
It was
completely
35%. I
terrible.
think it was like 35%.
Or yeah, it was like just something really bad. And I know like the 3-point percentage was even worse. And I mean like
Mm-hmm.
by no means is he like an efficient 3-point shooter, but like he takes a lot of them. So like that's only going to hurt his team more. Just last year they kind
Mm-hmm.
of had him on lock, and like you said, it seemed like this team isn't quite the same since last year. It seems like they're still recovering over losing Kevin Herter as well to Sacramento, and like losing Gallinari. I know he's hasn't played all year, but like these are key players that were on the team last year that like they're still trying to find out who can consistently fill that void. But like you said, like with Miami, I know they've been up and down this year as well, but I think like given their experience as well, like you said, Jimmy Butler, he lives for these moments. I think that he'll definitely be able to get the job done. Oladipo's looked good in stretches this year. Bam has had a really solid year. And I'm sure Tyler Hero is going to show up. I'm really interested to see what we get out of Kyle Lowry for the play-in and the playoffs, because I think he's probably been the most polarizing, like key player on the Miami Heat all year long. But overall, I kind of agree with you. I think the Heat are gonna win. I feel like this might be like a blowout too. Like I don't know if it'll even be close. Do you think it'll be?
I'm expecting a Trae Young disaster class.
Yeah, I mean that's
You
kind
better go
of
1 for 11 from three.
that's kind of what I'm predicting, honestly. As harsh as to say for Hawks fans, but I don't know. That's just where I stand for that. But yeah. So if you want, though, we can move on to the next matchup, which is the West 7 and 8 seed. So we'll kind of go in order of how they're going to be played. So we got the Lakers as the 7 seed and the Timberwolves as the 8 seed. This should be interesting because, you know, they made that midseason trade kind of with Utah together. What do you think is going to come out of this matchup?
Come on, man. LeBron cannot allow himself to lose this. Like, there's absolutely no way in hell that. I mean, I know this is kind of like a simplistic way of looking at basketball, and you should honestly, as someone who covers basketball, you should never really look at basketball this way in terms of like you should be breaking things down and giving like real solid reasons X, Y, and Z. This is why this team is going to win. But in this situation, LeBron James, like, come on. He can't allow this to happen to him. Like, he has to win this game. Similar to how I believe it was 2 years ago when they had the play-in tournament against the Golden State Warriors, LeBron just couldn't allow himself to miss the punch. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you're not the biggest LeBron fan. I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, but at the same time, he's top 3 all time, top 2, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So for him, he can't allow this to happen. So especially with AD playing the way he's been playing, playing excellent basketball. This team is a lot better post trade. I mean, before that trade deadline, they had Russ, and that was a complete disaster. You know what I mean? So now that they have a completely different roster, they actually have shooting on the team. Austin Reeves been playing out of his mind. I don't even know where that man came from. and it just this team seems a lot more rejuvenated. Anthony Davis has been the first option as of late, and which is how they were playing back in the 2020 season, and look how that ended. So with that being said, the Lakers got to win this. There's no excuse for it. So yeah, the Lakers are going to win.
Yeah, I think like the one thing that's going to be key in this matchup is the Lakers. You know, they've been the best this season at drawing free throws for their team. And whether, maybe that's a little referee like helping them out and stuff like that, it is still.
Oh yeah, no, definitely the ref.
Yeah, I mean, it is still a thing. So, I mean, I would expect that, especially because, Minnesota, they have 2 centers who are kind of flat-footed. Like Rudy Gobert's a solid interior defender, but at the same time, he's not like that athletic big. Neither really is Karl Anthony Towns. On the offensive end, Cat's going to give you a lot in terms of like 3-level scoring. But I don't know. I just don't know where this Minnesota team sits right now. Just in the game today, I think McDaniels like fractured his hand at halftime because he was upset, and then that whole Gobert and Kyle Anderson riff. So I don't know where they're sitting right now, like as a team, as a unit. So you look at the Lakers; they've won, I believe, 8 of their last 10. I know a lot of those were against teams that are below them in the standings. So maybe that doesn't say a whole lot, but I still think that, I think one of those games too was against Minnesota, and they were down big early, and then they came back and pushed to a win. So I feel like the Lakers will also win this, and that'll match them up against Memphis in the first round. So that should be interesting given, they have some injuries too, but it'll put a lot of pressure, I think, on Jaren Jackson Jr. to not be in foul trouble,
So, my bad. Just going to throw right quick. So, long story short, you agree that the Lakers should be favored. You got them winning, right?
Yeah, I think the Lakers.
And they would play.
They'd play Memphis.
And they would play Memphis in the first round, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
that should be interesting.
So we both got Miami. We both got the Lakers. We'll see how this one goes. So we got the Eastern Conference 9 and 10 seed. This one is for loser goes home. The 9 seed Toronto Raptors and the 10 seed Chicago Bulls. Where do you think this one's going to go? Who do you think is going to win this?
This is going to be I've never been much of a believer in the Raptors, to be honest with you, so I'm going to go Bulls on this one. And I know you're glad to hear that because you're a Bulls fan yourself. Honestly, yeah, I'm going to go Bulls on this one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are they missing anybody? Any key players that are going into this?
Other than Lonzo, but he's been out like all year.
Yeah, I mean he's been out for like all year. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, I got the Bulls on this one. DeMar, I got it. I got Bulls on this one.
So I would not be surprised given, today I'm kind of surprised that the Raptors sat Siakam and Van Vliet in the last game of the regular season, because usually you want to, if you're in the play-in, and especially if you're like in a win or go home the next game, like you want to have that rhythm. So I'm kind of surprised they sat their guys today against I think the Bucks. I know they won still, but I was a little surprised by that. But I don't know, man. It's just been a tough year as a Bulls fan. we've been so up and down. We've blown so many games that we should have had. And like the defense is so inconsistent. The decision making is so bad. And I think Toronto's length might hurt us a lot. So, I'm being biased against my Bulls because I see them so much this year and they've been so disappointing. But I'm probably gonna go with the Raptors just because I don't trust my own team. But I am glad though that you picked the Bulls. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, everything you say makes perfect sense. The length, like you mentioned, obviously Pascal Siakam is a real deal, but I don't know. I guess I kind of, not that I'm ball don't stop or anything like that, but I kind of trust that kind of archetype. Whereas like DeMar DeRozan, he's an elite shot creator, especially in the mid range. Same thing with Zach LaVine. He's a great scorer at all three levels. And then you have Alex Caruso, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. I mean, they've been up and down all season and whatnot, but I'm gonna go ahead and rock with the Bulls on this one.
The one thing I will say is I'm expecting DeRozan. I hope he doesn't let me down, but I'm expecting DeRozan to go off in that game just because it's back in Toronto.
DeRozan's great until he sees LeBron in the playoffs.
Well, good thing he's not in the conference anymore.
Exactly. So he's good.
But yeah, I think he will go off though, just because it is in Toronto. Whether we win or not, probably a different story. But I don't know. I'm gonna roll with the Raptors. You got the Bulls. That's good. We got our first disagreement, but we'll see. Maybe we got another one here, though, in the Western Conference with the 9 seed New Orleans Pelicans and the 10 seed Oklahoma City Thunder that nobody thought would even be here. So who do you got in this one?
This one is probably the more challenging one to pick from. I mean, you have OKC, who's just a very, very young team. And you also have the New Orleans Pelicans, are also a very, very young team for the most part. So it's kind of like, you kind of just picking hairs at this point. Yeah, New Orleans in the playoffs last year, for the first time in I don't remember how long. Brandon Ingram's been playing out of his mind. I saw a stat not too long ago. Brandon Ingram, since I think it might have been the All-Star break or the trade deadline, one of the two, he's actually, a lot of his statistics, when you match him up to Anthony Davis, are better than Anthony Davis. Obviously, he's not nearly the defender AD is, so, take that with a grain of salt. But just, raw numbers, he's been playing out of his mind. They're not going to have Zion, so that's what really makes it interesting. If they were to have Zion, this wouldn't even be a contest to me. It'd be New Orleans pretty easily, but they don't. But they also have, Bi, like I mentioned, who's been playing out of his mind. So that kind of makes things very, very interesting between these two. This is probably the best, I guess, most interesting of the playing games to watch. And then you have OKC, SGA. I mean, he's pretty much arrived this year. A lot of people will tell you that he's better than John now, John Morant. I mean, I guess that's neither here nor there. That's a good debate to have. But, he's really emerging as one of the best players in the league. He's probably going to get all the NBA second team. So with that being said, it really could go either way. I would probably side with. Damn. I don't know where to go with. I just feel like OKC might be a little bit too young. Honestly, it might be a little just too eager, and their nerves might be too tense. You know what I mean? It might be arms are heavy, palms are sweaty. Mom spaghetti, something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with New Orleans on this only because of the experience of being in the playoffs last year, and because Brandon Ingram's that guy.
Yeah. Well, I do know where you stand on that whole John Morant thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because I know that's your guy. But I mean, Shai has definitely done a good job of leading this Thunder team, and it's not like it's just him, because Josh Giddey's been good and Lou Dort's been good. Jalen Williams as well. He's really, second half of the year, you could argue he's been the most important rookie. But I mean, obviously he's not going to win Rookie of the Year because that's basically Paolo Banchero's. But it's interesting because the last 2 years, like you think in 2021, Memphis was that really young team and they knocked out the Warriors. And then last year, the Pelicans were this young team and they knocked out the Clippers. But the Thunder seem like this young team now. But the thing that's just so hard is the Pelicans have played so well lately. And I know they don't have Zion, but I feel like given what Minnesota just had go on today, I feel like if the Thunder were playing Minnesota, I would pick the Thunder just because that chemistry with them, as opposed to the Thunder, they're like a hungry team. Whereas, I don't know, the Pelicans have just been so good lately. I know they didn't win last game of the regular season, but I'm probably going to roll with the Pelicans as well. I don't know. It's just hard to go against them. Lately Trey Murphy and Herb Jones have both stepped up really big to end the season. CJ's never missed the playoffs, so I'm sure he's going to be hungry to like keep that streak alive. So, and of course Brandon Ingram's
one of the more underrated players in the league too.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to agree with you. I got New Orleans as well. We've agreed so far on everything other than, my Bulls and the Raptors. So I guess we'll move on, though, to the East. So that 8 seed game. So you have Atlanta and Chicago. So I'll ask you, between Atlanta and Chicago in that game.
I have Miami and Chicago. Mm-hmm.
Well, wait. Oh, you wait. So you have Atlanta over Miami?
Yeah, because I picked Miami first.
Well, yeah, you picked Miami.
But I'm confused.
No, you picked Miami in the 7 seed game, like against Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
right.
You would have Atlanta and Chicago, and Atlanta would have home court. But who do you think would win that?
I'll go Chicago on that. I think they match up pretty well against Atlanta, especially having somebody like Alex Caruso, who's a tremendous on-ball defender. So with that being said, you have a situation where they match up just perfectly. I mean, they have somebody who obviously you can't lock down Trae Young because he's one of the best scorers in the league, but you can make it tough on him. And I think that's something Alex Caruso is known for. I mean, that's pretty much his calling card as far as, just a solid perimeter defense. So just based off that, and then you have two all-world scorers on the Chicago Bulls team. I mean, it's hard for me to not pick Chicago in this situation as well. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm just not that very high on Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't been high on either Atlanta or Toronto most of the year, but I also was very disappointed with my Bulls, and that's why I couldn't pick them. But
yeah,
I feel like I would feel more confident with the Bulls against Atlanta personally than against Toronto. So I definitely could see that happening. We should have won 3 of the 4 games against Atlanta this year, but I think with who I have Atlanta and Toronto. I'm also not really high on Atlanta, and I feel like Toronto would beat them as well. So we both are in agreement that Atlanta would lose out and miss throughout the play-in, though, too.
Oh, yeah, they're not winning.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just tough. Before the year, I remember I had Atlanta as the 8 seed, and I had Toronto as the 9 seed. But after seeing a full season, and they really have still been on the same playing field level of disappointing, both of them this year. But I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like I trust Toronto a little bit more than I trust Atlanta. So I'm probably going to go.
And they match up pretty well against Atlanta as well.
Yeah. They also pose a lot of the same problems, I think, that the Heat pose Atlanta, with their size and their length and stuff. So it might be hard for a guy like Trae Young to get out of that. I feel like if he had to play Miami and then Toronto back-to-back, yikes, And
I mean, to be honest, all these teams, not to cut you off, but all these teams have a good way of defending Trae Young. I mean, that's pretty much, especially with their team this year, their roster this year, that's pretty much all they have as far as a type of consistency. So, I mean, if you can, obviously, like I said before, you can't really stop him. But if you have the right matchup as far as somebody who can defend him, for Toronto, you got Fred VanVleet. For Chicago, you got Alex Caruso. For Miami, you got a lot of multiple bodies you can throw at him. Things of that nature. They'll make it really tough on Trae, especially when it comes to trying to score, things of that nature. So, I mean, they all pretty much match up well against the Hawks, particularly because they don't really have much outside of Trae.
I will say too, in the most recent game, the Bulls played the Hawks, was probably the best game the Hawks played against us all year, and Trae Young didn't play. So, and I know that's people are gonna say you're saying they're better without Trae Young. I'm not saying that. I think sometimes the matchups are a little different. And I feel like we match up maybe better with the Hawks when he's in the lineup as opposed to when he's not. So that's definitely valid. So we got Toronto and Chicago both beating Atlanta in that game. And then in the Western Conference, we both have Minnesota and New Orleans in the 8-9 matchup. Who do you got winning that one? They just played today, but a rematch. And it would also be in Minnesota.
So Minnesota against New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Am I allowed to let you go first on this one?
you can let me go first.
First on this one.
So Minnesota just won this matchup today, but I personally feel more confident with New Orleans, just the way they've been playing lately. Like they've almost been like arguably a top 5 team in the league over the last like 2-3 weeks. Like they've been like 7-3 in their last 10 or something like that. And I feel like they're building a better chemistry as well. Minnesota, I don't know where it is now after, especially today, but throughout most of the year, it seemed like their chemistry has been up and down and up and down. So I would probably go New Orleans on this. But what do you think?
To be honest, when you put it like that, it kind of helps me because to be honest, I really wasn't sure. But when you put it into that perspective, it makes more sense to pick New Orleans. I mean, they just have a great chemistry going on as far as as opposed to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, shit, it might be Rudy Gobert causing all these issues because I mean, it was reported that him and Donovan Mitchell didn't really get along too much either. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to think he the problem.
Yeah, he might just
But
be like.
I don't know what it is. I don't. Maybe people don't rock with him like that. But no, that's a joke. I guess neither here nor there. I guess I would be more confident in New Orleans as well, particularly because I mean they have absolutely nobody that can really guard Bi. I mean, and like I hate really saying it like that because these are superstar players, so it's not really a such thing as guarding somebody like that. But you know what I mean? Like make it tough on them.
Mhm.
I mean, I think he can pretty much just have his way against that defensive team. But with that being said, I'm gonna probably agree with you that I think New Orleans is probably the move as far as that matchup. And then again, we kind of slight CJ McCollum and all this. Like you said before, he has like a active playoff streak as far as always making playoffs.
Mhm.
He's just a really really solid basketball player. And I was actually arguing this is like recent as like 2 years ago that like if he wasn't in the Western Conference, he'd probably be seen as a higher tier player, just simply because there's so many guards in the Western Conference, especially at that time. I always felt like he was kind of underrated in that sense. I mean, he's a consistent bucket getter. Especially back in Portland. His last few years in Portland, about 25 points per game, something like that.
Mhm.
So for me, I mean, you have such great scoring capability on New Orleans, combined with that chemistry you mentioned, as well as Herb Jones and Trey Murphy in them. I'm gonna go ahead and go with New Orleans on this one.
One other thing I'll add is that even though he's missed a lot of games this year. I know he's been healthy to end the year, but with Brandon Ingram's case, is that he's been actually one of the most clutch players this season. So if it comes down wire to wire game, like I would probably have a lot of faith in him with the ball in his hands late down the stretch. And of course, we've seen CJ do it as well. It's a tough tandem, but yeah, I mean, so we basically agreed on most of the play-in, other than, of course, you had my Bulls getting in there at 8th, and I had the Toronto Raptors getting in there at 8th. But yeah, if you want though, we can move on. We could talk briefly about a few NBA topics before we get to this mini game here to end the game or end the
Mm-hmm.
show. The first thing is, Jaylen Brown recently apparently cut his hand on broken glass. Apparently from like watering his plants, which seems ridiculous. It just seems like out of pocket, I guess.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So he's not supposed to be like out or anything for the playoffs, but I guess like is there any like takeaways from this maybe like with other NBA players, even with like I don't even know how to say it, but like maybe in the playoffs and like they need to be cautious, like super cautious about some of those things. Like what do you think?
Well, okay. So when you say be cautious, are you talking about like players getting more rest?
Well, like whether it's that or like even like because watering your plants seems like a basic everyday thing, like maybe
Yeah.
I get yeah, like something like that, but it just doesn't seem like something that you would expect like something bad to come out of for playing sake. So like how like looking at where the stratosphere is in the playoffs right now, this seems like it could be one of the best playoffs ever. Do you think players are going to be like more and more like cautious with some of the stuff they're doing off the court?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, to be honest, this is probably one of the strangest seasons like I think I've ever been alive to witness because there's so many like teams that are even higher seeds that haven't won that many games, like especially in the Western Conference. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are like 42, 43 wins, and they're like the fourth, fifth seed. I'm like, that's kind of weird to think about. Like back then, like for example, if you think about like Kobe Bryant's Western Conference back in 2010, for example, every team that made the playoffs was a 50-win team.
Mm.
I think only one team in the West has won 50 games this year so far. If
Yeah,
I'm right or
yeah.
wrong about that,
There are
I
two.
think
It's
only Boston and Milwaukee.
Memphis and Denver in the West. Yeah.
And same in the East. I think it's just Milwaukee and Boston, right?
Philly has as well, and then the Cavs just barely. So there's 650 win teams, but there's no 60 win teams. And I think the Bucks have the
Yeah, so
best
it's like,
record.
it's like
Go ahead,
everybody's
yeah.
trash.
Yeah, basically, it's like an even playing field, you know?
So with that being said, and the reason why I brought up that point is because right now this is probably, even though they're, especially mostly in the West, a lot of teams haven't won a lot of games.
Mm.
That kind of, I mean, everybody's separated by like what, three games as far as like seeding is concerned.
And yeah, in the
So
meat
when
of
you
it,
put it
yeah.
into that perspective, like this is probably one of the most competitive playoffs we've had in a while, just based off that fact. So kind of to tie back to players being cautious. I'm not saying that Jalen Brown lying or anything like he's trying to get some rest for the playoffs. But, what I mean, um, it is a little ridiculous, like you mentioned before. I mean, for one, when is he even home? Like he's an NBA player, he should always be on the road. For the most part. I mean, maybe he had time to, right before the game, let me go water my plants. Like I don't get it. That's kind of ridiculous to me as well. Why don't you just pay somebody to do it? But I digress. To your point, though, I do think it is kind of a situation where people are just being cautious. Like, for example, we know that Zion out west is supposed. I mean, he's expected to be in the playoffs.
Mm.
I think he's supposed to be reevaluated like very, very soon, if not already. But with him, for example, I think I don't know this for sure, but like to me, like he's probably already healthy, but they're just like trying to be cautious, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that way, they don't, what I mean? Because this is going to be a very competitive um, playoff, I guess, time that we're going to get to see. So with that being said, I do think players are going to be more cautious. I mean, we saw literally what was it yesterday and the day before the Suns sat everybody,
Mm.
against the Lakers. So I think it is a situation of being more cautious, but it is kind of strange to see. Um, I mean, I don't want to sound like an old head because I'm not an old head. I'm only 24. But I mean, during Kobe's era or during Jordan's era, everybody just played every game. Like,
Right.
so I never like even like there's stories about Jordan in preseason. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that Reggie Miller clip where he's talking about like MJ in the preseason, like how like he was like talking trash to MJ, and
Yeah.
then like in the second half, MJ just came out and like killed Reggie Miller. So like back then, like people were really playing every game, like just because they loved playing every game. And nowadays, it's like nothing. There's anything wrong with it. I'm not trying to be like one of those old heads, but they're just being a little bit more cautious with their bodies. I mean, we saw as recently as KD, in a warm up line getting hurt. So injuries literally could just happen any time. So yeah, I would say it's kind of just a move to be a little bit more cautious. Like, I mean, I'm not saying Jalen Brown didn't actually cut his hand, but it's all in the interest of trying to make a deep playoff.
Yeah, and I think even like to that point about MJ, I think he also did something like that with Gary Payton, like when he was a rookie too, like in preseason. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely different. I don't really have much to add there. I think the one thing I will say is like the tough part, I guess, is like he's missed the last couple games, whether it's because of that or just because of rest. I don't really know. But now it's like it's gonna be almost 12 days or so in between games for him and like a situation like that, especially like resting guys in the last game or two of the season, like it's gonna be like a 2 week layoff, like a vacation before playoff time, which could harm some teams than and compared to some of these other guys that are playing in the play-in. Maybe they get more reps and stuff. Like sometimes reps is good, sometimes rest is good. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, that was kind of just my main point there, but yeah, if you want though, we can move on here. We can talk about a special someone on your Miami Heat who has played his last regular season game. Probably will be his last NBA game unless there's like a blowout in the playoffs or something like that. And they're like, you know what, just go in there. But probably his best
Yeah.
game in a while, and that is Udonis Haslem, who tonight he had 24 points, which was the most in the game, 3 rebounds. The Heat won tonight too, so the most points in a win as well. And then he had 3 3-pointers. So I guess like, what do you
Which
think?
was very odd.
That is very odd. I think I saw a stat like he only had 2 threes over the last 8 years prior to tonight. So what do you make of this big night for Udonis Haslem? I know D Wade kind of had one like that in his last regular season game. So like, what do you make of this for Haslem to have like a moment this special?
I mean, let's be honest. For the last few years, I mean, he's kind of just been like the vet guy. You know what I mean, like a locker room presence, type of situation. But I mean, he's a Heat lifer. He's also born in South Florida as well. So it's kind of for him on an individual level. I mean, I'm sure it's really special as far as kind of growing up in this area. And I say in this area because I'm also in South Florida. And then kind of getting to play for the team that's in South Florida, and then playing your whole career there. He was there during the Miami Heatles. He's been through, I mean, pretty much he's been there the entire time. He got to experience those deep playoff runs with Jimmy Butler. So he's just a constant pro. Um, I mean, there's not much else to say. I mean, like I said, the last few years he kind of just been locker room guy for the most part because I believe he's like 42, 43 now.
Yeah.
But just to see the highlights of him, getting buckets, getting that lob from I believe it was from Kyle Lowry or Victor Oladipo. I don't remember who threw the lob, but that joke was crazy. I think he hit the lob. D Wade like got out his chair and whatnot, had like the number 40 jersey on. So it was just real special for him to see that. I'm sure his family's real excited as well. But more than likely, it's like you said before, it'll probably be his last game. I mean, he might step on the court, in garbage time in the playoffs. That's yet to be seen, of course. But for the most part, when I saw the stat sheet, that's why he hit three threes. I'm like, what in the hell? He was 3 or 7. That's actually pretty good. So he was just letting those shits fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hats off to him. He's definitely somebody who's. I mean, he definitely should work for Miami. I mean, he should definitely get some type of employment, in the front office somewhere, in the future for Miami. That definitely should be in the works if it isn't. I mean, I'm not sure if that's what he wants to do, but that'd be a great move for him. But yeah, I mean, just great dude, great night.
Yeah, I think like maybe from the player standpoint, like player development, because that's kind of like what he's been the last few years. Is really like it's kind of like a player
Mm-hmm.
coach. Like that probably is where he's stepping back from. But like within the Heat organization, I still probably see him being somewhere. But definitely is good for him. He's been there literally for the tail time essentially, like since 2003, I believe was his first year because this is his 20th year. And like I think he's the only player that's still in the NBA that was in college like prior to when I was born. Just to think about how long he's been in the landscape of this league, right? But just to think about that, like, I mean, he was huge in 2006. He was also huge, really, in their finals runs as well, like that they made with the big three with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. And he even
I
played.
think he started.
Yeah, he did start. I actually was just watching back some of the 2011 finals the other day, and I mean, I think he was really good in like a couple of those games against Dallas as well. But I mean, yeah, he's definitely been huge. I mean, as a Bulls fan as well, like when we played the Heat, like in the D Rose, LeBron era, like Haslem had some big games then as well. So, most people like kids or something, they're gonna remember the last several years where he basically just stayed until the end, stuff like that. But I mean, I feel like most people realize like what he contributed to championship teams or finals teams or teams that were
Mm-hmm.
like always in the playoff mix or something like that. And I personally, even if he did play a lot today, I kind of thought like, okay, like maybe if they played him 30 minutes, he'd get like maybe a double double or something like that, maybe. But 24 points and he shot efficient and he shot 3 threes that he made and shot 7. So I don't know, that was kind of crazy personally for me. So I don't know. I think it's great. He definitely deserves his jersey retired for the Heat as well.
For
But
sure.
yeah, I don't know, man. If you I don't know if you got anything else you want to add there. You want to move on to that mini game at the end.
No, we go ahead and move on to this game you're talking about. I'm interested to see how I'll do.
Okay, so it's a new game I haven't done on the channel before. So if there are flaws for me, then I apologize for that. So I'll read the rules. So basically, it's called the NBA In Common game. So this mini game, I'm gonna give my guy Edwin A1Hoopz here. There's gonna be 5 different questions, but I'm gonna provide 3 things. It could be 3 players, it could be 3 teams, it could be 3 whatever. And you have to find what they all have in common. If it's something they have in common that's not on my list, then you'll earn an additional point as well. So the way the points work is if you get it in the first guess, you get 10 points. If you get it in the second guess, you get 8. Third guess, you get 6. Fourth guess, you get 2. Or fourth guess, you get 4. And then fifth guess, you get 2. But if it was your fifth guess and you got it, but it was something else that I did not think of, you'd get 3 points. So it's like a +1 on your point total. Now, after the 5 questions, I can give you a hint if you literally don't know. And if you get it after that hint, you'll get 1 point. If you don't, then you just don't get it. And then if it's something like super basic, like, oh, all 3 of them are players, or all 3 of them are teams, or all 3 of them are this position, then probably won't give you credit for that, but I'll probably just tell you and I won't count it as a guess. But yeah, other than that, I mean, we'll see how this goes. Again, I've never done this before on my channel, so
I'm horrible at these kind of games.
I mean,
All right, go ahead.
we'll see how you do. So the first one, are you ready for the first one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first one I feel like is pretty easy. They'll get a little harder as it goes, but the first one I think should be easy. It's the 3 things I'm giving you are Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole.
They all play on the Warriors.
That is correct. They all play on the Warriors. So
Oh, I got another one. I got. They're all light skinned.
I mean, that's also valid, I guess. But no, so that's 10 points. That was the thing I was thinking of. So pretty simple. I mean, that's kind of like how it works. I guess that was like a trial run per se. But we'll see how you do on these.
Nah, I need my points.
you got your 10 points. You got your 10 points. So are you ready for the second one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the 3 things here for the second one are the New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
They all haven't won a championship in at least, when was 1995? How long ago was
that? 28 years.
Oh wait, no, Milwaukee won the championship 2 years. Ah, damn. This is a good one. All right, so the Milwaukee Bucks, the Rockets, and the Knicks. I see. Jeez, what do they have in common? It must be a player. Alright. So I gotta guess 5 times first?
You could guess 5 times, or you could skip to the hint, but what I will say is I'm making a rule you gotta guess at least 3 times before you get to the hint. New rule just in the middle of the thing.
Alright. They must have had a player together. I wanna say maybe, damn. Maybe as a coach. PJ, no, I don't think PJ ever played on the Knicks. Damn, this is a good one.
The Knicks, the Rockets, and the Bucks.
Did Jeremy Lin play on the? No, he didn't play on the Rockets.
Are you guessing Jeremy Lin, like as the connection, or?
Nah, I don't know if this counts, but I'm pretty sure Kobe scored at least 40 against all 3 of these teams.
Okay.
I don't know if that counts.
That is valid, but I believe he did that against every team. So.
No, he never scored 40 against Miami.
Yeah, or against the Lakers, I guess. So, I won't count that. So you still have your first guess on this if you want.
Damn, that'll count. All right, fine. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Lin never played on the Bucks or the Rockets. I don't know why I was thinking, but I think maybe in one of my 2K Association fantasy drafts, I think he ended up on there, and that's why I'm getting confused with real life.
You could guess Jeremy Lin. You have 5 guesses, but I'll leave that up to you.
All right, well, I'm just gonna throw that in there just so I can get closer to the hint. Jeremy Lin.
It is not Jeremy Lin. That is not the connection here. So you got to use at least 2 more guesses before you can get to the hint at the end.
First letter in all three names start with a consonant instead of a vowel.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure that doesn't count.
that's true, but that's not it. No.
Does that count as
So
a guess at least?
yeah, I'll count
Damn.
that as a guess, just because I'm sure you want the hint at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Yo, you should lower this to two guesses.
Uh,
For the start, for the next one, not now.
okay, yeah, we'll do it. Two guesses for the next one. We're
Oh,
learning. This is a new game. um,
yeah, what did these teams have in common?
you were kind of on the right track with your first thought. I will say that. That's not like a hint, but I mean, I'll give you the hint in a sec. But like your original thought was kind of on the right track.
See what you're saying. Didn't Kenneth Freed play for all three? No, I think he only played in Houston. Yeah, because he was only there the first year James Harden was when Harden won MVP. He was there. He was just like never in the game. Because that was my third hint. For a minute, I thought he had played in New York.
Are you guessing, or you're not guessing Kenneth Faried or no?
No, I am guessing Kenneth Freed, but
Okay,
I know that's wrong.
it is not Kenneth Faried. So the hint, it brings you down to 1 point you could earn on this, but I will give you the hint. So they all have the same number of championships, but tell me if you can tell me how many championships they all have, then I'll give you the point.
Oh, they all have two championships.
And
Milwaukee won it in 1971 with Kareem, and 2021 with Giannis. The Rockets won it back to back, 94-95 with Hakeem the Dream, and the Knicks won it in 19 was it 69?
it was
Nah, I think it was later than that. I
it
think it
was
was like
70 and
74.
73. 70 and 73. So you are
Ah,
correct
okay.
though. It is they all won two championships. So you got still a point for that.
Mm-hmm.
You got 11 right now. Not too shabby. Um, we'll see how you do though on the third one. Are you ready for the third one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the third one, it's three players again. So this one is Victor Oladipo, D'Angelo Russell,
Mm-hmm.
and Ja Morant.
Oh, these three have something in common.
I will say, just to throw it out, the thing they have in common is not like that they're all guards. So it's something else. Victor Oladipo, D'Angelo Russell, Ja Morant.
They're all the same height. Aren't they
Uh,
all 6'3"?
um, let me confirm that actually because I was not anticipating that guess. So Victor Oladipo is 6'4", D'Angelo
Oh, okay,
Russell
never mind.
is 6'4", and uh
John 6'3", so that's wrong.
yeah, Ja's actually it says it's listed at 6'2", but still like six. Yeah, this says 6'3", so it is unfortunately not that. So that's the first guess.
Well, I didn't really have anything in common. It's not their play styles. They all three of them play wildly differently. Them being guards, I mean, that's not really that valid because I guess Oladipo is more of a two guard than anything. Um, they all be from the same place. That's my guess. Are they from the same place?
They are not all from the same place. So that's your second guess. I feel like you could get another guess in before I give you the hint, so I'm gonna keep it at 3.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is easier than the team one too, like with the players.
Hmm. I feel like I should know.
I mean, you are a Ja
I
fan.
don't know if this counts as a hint or not. I know, but do you feel like I should know this? Like,
Uh, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you'll probably know it after the hint. I will say, but
I know they don't all go to the same school. Know that. Could it be they've all never made it past the second round? No, I don't think D'Lo's ever been to the second round. He hasn't. And Victor Oladipo went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Jobs are over there. Maybe they had the same career high.
It is not the same career high.
All right, that was my third guess. But
So would you like the hint?
yeah.
Okay, so the hint is it's based on where they were all drafted.
Oh, so were they all number two picks?
They all were number 2 picks, yes. So Victor Oladipo, number 2 in 2013, and then D'Lo in 2015, and then your boy Ja in 2019. So yeah, so you got that one. That is a point still there. So you got 12 right now. And we got 2 more. I feel like this next one, the last one's going to be hard, but I feel like you might get this next one. So are you ready for number 4?
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so number 4, the 3 are Joakim Noah, David Lee,
Joakim Noah.
and Mike Miller.
And they have something in common, right?
Yep, Joakim Noah, David Lee, Mike Miller.
All right. So maybe it's teams. Let me think. David Lee's been on the Warriors. Joakim Noah's been on the Bulls. And he was on the Clippers for like a total of 8 minutes and 42 seconds. um, um, Joakim Noah, David Lee, Mike Miller. I feel like it has something to do with LeBron.
Are you guessing? Well, I guess I don't know what there'd be a guess there. Is your guess going to be something I guess relevant to LeBron?
Yeah, that's my first.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure if you tie it in close enough, it probably is, but because everything could tie to him, but unfortunately, that's not it.
David Lee was on the Warriors before Steph became Steph. Well, yeah, for the most, yeah,
That is true.
he was like, he was there before Steph. He was there when Monte Ellis was there. If I'm not mistaken.
That is also true. He was there with Monte Ellis.
He was a pretty solid player too. I mean, not special, but decent. Joakim Noah. I mean, he was especially then in that 2014 season, the year KD won MVP. I think he won Defensive Player of the Year that year.
Yeah, he did win it that year. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously a very good player. He has like the ugliest free throw shot I've ever seen in my fucking life. He like spins the ball. You got the man bun and the man Mike Miller, straight up sniper. He played with LeBron. I don't know what they have in common. Have they? Ah, damn. I've only had one guess so far. Maybe they have a teammate in common. Wow, this is very difficult. Have they? They must have had a teammate in common. That's my guess.
um, I don't. I mean, like, no, that's not. So that's not what it is. But I'm trying to think. Like, maybe there is somewhere along the way. I'm just gonna say no. Unfortunately, I'm just gonna say no, because
Okay.
there's none that I can think of that have played with all of them off the top of my head, and I didn't prepare that. So that's 2 you've used. You got one more, and then we'll go to the hint.
All right. It's weird that I can't think of anything they have in common. Shit. The play styles are all 3 of them are very, very different. Mike Miller was kind of a sniper. My boy Joakim Noah was an interior presence. My boy David Lee, uh, he had a little mid-range game going. Um, Damn, this is hard. Are they all left-handed? Wait, no, I don't think Mike Miller was left-handed.
Are you guessing lefties?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just say lefties.
It is not lefties. So would you
Yeah,
like?
because I don't think Joakim Noah was left-handed either.
Yeah, he wasn't. Okay, so would you like the hint at the end?
Oh, yeah. I don't think none of them was left-handed.
So the hint, well, David Lee was, but so the hint I'll give you is the thing they have in common is relevant to the state you're in.
Did they all go to Florida?
They all did go to Florida, yes.
Mm,
See, that was tough because
all right.
Joakim was memorable, but I feel like David Lee, Mike Miller might have been harder because they weren't on those title teams with Horford and Corey Brewer and those guys. So that was tough, I guess. But so you still got that one, 13 points. Now, if you get this last one, like this would be insane. And honestly, because it's so hard, I'll let you do 2 guesses and then you can skip if you would like. So are you ready for the final one?
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so your 3 things, they're all players. Louis Scola, John Paxson,
Uh-huh.
and Kevin Duckworth.
John Paxson, Kevin Duckworth.
And
He
Louis
played on the Trailblazers. Luis Scola played in the Rockets. So we have a Rockets player. We have a, a, a Bulls player. And we have a Trailblazer player. 2 of them were in the 90s. One of them played in the 2000s.
And again, I'll let you do 2. You can do 2 guesses on this one, then you can skip to the end because this one's hard.
They didn't play anything like any 3 of them. John Paxson was a little guard. Duckworth was like a interior kind of dude. Luis Scola, same thing.
Mm.
Well, Luis Scola was more like he could hit the mid range. Um, they played the same amount of time in the NBA.
You know what? I'll look into that because was not anticipating that question either. So John Paxson played 11 seasons in the NBA. Kevin Duckworth played um 11 seasons in the NBA. And Louis Scola, you might hold on a second. You might actually
What?
Louis Scola played 10 years in the NBA. Unfortunately,
Ah,
that was a pretty good guess
damn.
though. That was a pretty good guess. I did not. That's not what it is, but I would have given you the 10 points if you got that. That's a good guess though. So
Um, did John Paxson play for another team? Yo, yeah, I know he did. Did they? What other team did Luis Scola play for? I know he played in the Rockets, but that was where he played most of his career. And I'm not sure if Duckworth played for another team. Maybe they've all played for 2 teams.
is that what you're guessing? I'll play for 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
is. It is not that. So
Mm-hmm.
now, if you want, I can give you the hint.
Nah, go ahead.
Okay, so you want the hint?
Yeah.
So the hint is, and it kind of gives it away, but you would have to guess which team. They all got drafted by the same team. But which team is the question?
Am I allowed to know what year they got drafted? I mean,
No, you don't have to know what year.
yeah. Am I
Just
allowed to? Oh, okay. No, but I'm saying, would I be able to know that, or would that be like cheating?
yeah, like for each of them.
Yeah.
So Louis Scola was in 2002. Kevin Duckworth was in 1986, and John Paxson was 1983.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say they all got drafted by Houston.
That is pretty close, but it is not Houston. It is,
All right, pretty close. I'm guessing
and
you mean proximity wise.
yes, it is an in-state rival, but unfortunately, it was the San Antonio Spurs. They all got drafted by.
Ah, I was gonna guess Dallas.
Yeah. The big reason, so I remember that mainly because like Scola, and him and Manu Ginobili, they're Argentinian or whatever. They play for the Argentina team, and they both got drafted by the Spurs, right? So that's why I remember that. John Paxson, Kevin Duckworth, both didn't play there that much. I think they combined for like less than 2 seasons played there, and Scola never played for the Spurs. So that's why that was a tough one. But yeah. So I don't know. Overall, you got still 13 points, pretty respectable. How do you think?
I like this game a lot. You should definitely bring this one on more often. I don't know how you came up with this, but this is a good one. The only suggestion I would make, maybe,
Mm,
I think you should start it off with a hint, but try
yeah.
to make it like as not like non-giveaway as possible. Like
Mm,
you could be like, oh, this player, this player, this player. Here's a hint. It has something to do with boom, you know. Because for some of these, when you said all three of them, I was like, I don't know where to go from here. Like the John
yeah.
Morant one,
Yeah.
Victor, and D'Lo. I had no idea where to go.
Yeah. Well,
But no, this is definitely a good one. You should definitely keep this one on.
you live and you learn. The good news is for you is, no one else has done this mini game, so you are on top of the leaderboards. Technically, you are first place, so
Yeah,
that's always good. You are currently the in-common NBA game champion. But yeah,
trying to keep it like that for real. Trying to defend my championship.
for real. But yeah, man. Again, appreciate you being on. I had a blast connecting again. I know it's been some time, so it was always good to collab again. But again, hope you guys at home enjoyed, and thank you guys for watching. You got any other final thoughts before you round this thing up?
Not much, man. Just glad to see you always putting in that work. You've been one of the more consistent people as far as just chasing the goal. I guess wish I could say the same for me. Obviously, I haven't been doing that myself, but
Hey, the
it's
comeback is
definitely something
coming.
that is to be respected.
I said
You
the
said
comeback
what?
is
Yeah,
coming.
it's definitely something to be respected as far as what you're doing. You've always put in that work, so I just want to make sure give you that appreciation. But like I say, I mean, for sure, you've always been one putting in the work. So hats off to you for that. As far as I'm concerned, I ain't gonna lie, this kind of makes me want to like get back to it even more, like to just jump in again. So
Mm,
you definitely like kind of just like the MJ story. Remember he went to practice,
yeah.
he went to a Bulls practice, and then he was like, I
Mm,
kind of want to come back.
for
That's
real.
how I feel right now. So as far as those watching, definitely follow me on Twitter at A1Hoopz. I would say subscribe to me on YouTube, but to be honest, I haven't posted a video in like 6, 7 months, so I don't really deserve to subscribe. But just follow me on Twitter for for updates as far as when I get back, and then that's pretty much all I had to say.
For sure, man. I'll have all your stuff down below. I usually do. And I'll have check description down there as well. So you guys will be sure to check it out. Check out my man Edwin, aka A1Hoopz, for the latest updates. But yeah, other than that, again, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.